Hello and welcome. In this video, I will show you how to deploy the OpenCity Toolkit system on a server. There are three main software components in the OCT: the Node.js application, GeoServer, and GraphGIS. OCT will require all of them, together with some external dependencies, to run properly. Instead of setting up these individual components one by one, we will use Docker to simplify and optimize our deployment process. Docker uses container technology to create an independent subsystem within our host operating system. Although the technical realization of a container is very different from a virtual machine, but if you are using Docker for the first time, you could see it as a super lightweight virtual machine. Docker allows us to configure the container and run commands within the container. All the dependencies will be installed within the container, and the app will run in the container environment as well. For more information, please check out the Docker website. That should be all Docker knowledge you need to set up OCT for now. Now, let's go to our terminal and start setting up OCT. Let's log into our virtual machine. If you are using your local machine, that is also fine. The only thing you need to be aware of is that some commands may require root access to run. As a beginning, you have to install Git and Docker on your machine. I have already done so, but if you need guidance on how to download and install these software, please refer to their official website. For Git, it is under this URL. And for Docker, you can find it here. Once you've installed Docker and Git, you can navigate to the OCT GitHub repository located in this URL. Here we find all of the scripts of OCT. Click on the branch selector to select the version you wish to deploy. If you are deploying for our partners in Bhubaneswar, India, or Latacunga, Ecuador, please switch to the corresponding branch by clicking on the branch name. For our tutorial, I will just use the master branch. Now, copy the GitHub link and do a git clone in the folder where we want to store our project. Here, you can click on this icon to copy the GitHub link, and then go back to our terminal. Check the current working directory, and we want to store the OpenCity Toolkit in this directory. So we just type in git clone and paste the GitHub link. Since I've already done this step, it's giving me an error, but you should be able to download the project from GitHub using this command. When the clone is finished, let's change directory to web app and edit our .env file. First, let's change our directory to the OpenCity Toolkit folder, and then let's go to web app. Here, if we list the directory content, we can see if we list all, we can see there is a .env file, and we can use our default text editor to edit this file. I am using Nano. The .env file is used to set up environmental variables for our web application. The web application is all the script running in the client's client's browser. The variables we need to set are the geoserver URL, the initial lat, and the initial LUN. The geoserver URL should be the 8080 port of our hosting machine. In this case, my server's IP is this 47, 254, 145, and 44. And then I add the port number in the back. The initial lat and initial LUN are the starting coordinate of our application. For example's sake, I will use the Hamburg coordinate as our starting point. And we save and exit. If we show our .env file again, it should be changed. Okay. Then we will need to create several empty folders. These folders will contain user-generated data when the app starts. The first one is called geoserver data dir /data. Sorry, I made a mistake. I should change directory back to the root directory of the project, which is OpenCity Toolkit, and then make this new folder. Since I've already done this step, it's telling me that this folder already exists. And then we make another folder, which is called Grass Global. And then the third one, output. Make sure you create those folders, and then we go to the next step, which is building a Docker image using the Docker file in our root folder. Here, if we list the content, we can see there is a file called Docker file. And the command we use to build a Docker image is docker build -t oct dot. The -t oct option means that we will give our Docker image a title called OCT. And the dot at the end tells Docker to look for the Docker file within the current folder. Once the Docker image is built, Docker will later use this image to produce a container, which is the actual environment in which we run our app. Before running the container, let us look for a moment at our Docker file. Here on the GitHub repo, we can navigate to the corresponding folder, which is actually the root folder, and we click on the Docker file. Now we are seeing the content. The Docker file tells Docker how a container is configured. It tells us what operating system we will use for the image, how to set up the software dependencies, which is the main chunk of the content of the file, and finally, the Docker file tells us what command will be run when we run a container based on this image. Now let's run the container. This is the command we will use for running the container based on the OCT image. The D option tells the system to run the app in the background. The TI options give us an interactive terminal for inspecting applications logs. The V option stands for volume. These three commands shown in the highlight will mount GeoServer data, graphs, and output directories in the presently working folder into the container as volumes. By doing this, contents of these folders will be persisted and accessible from the host system. Otherwise, we will have to bash into the container to see what is really happening inside. The command to bash into the OCT container is written like this: docker execute interactive terminal my OCT and bash. Back to the run container command. The P option stands for port. These options mean that we will map the container port 3000 and 8080 to the host port 3000 and 8080. If we don't map these ports, we will not be able to reach the container's ports from an external IP. The name option gives a name to our container, which is my OCT, and the last parameter is an image name that we use for creating the container, which is OCT, the one we built just now. Now, when we run this command, it's telling us an error because we've run this command before and the system is already running. So we should be able to view our app in our web browser now. The OCT app will be located at this address, which contains my IP address of the server and then port 3000. And the GeoServer control panel will be under a different port, which is 8080. And also we can add GeoServer at the end. Sorry, this should be 8080. To log in the GeoServer control panel, we use the username admin and password GeoServer. Login. And now we are successfully logged in. Finally, let's see how we can stop our application. By typing in docker ps, we could see that our container is running. This is our container's name, myOCT, and the status is up for 4 minutes. With the command docker stop myOCT, we can stop our container. Docker stop myOCT. And now when we try to access the app, it is not available anymore. With the command docker start OCT, the container will run again. Sorry, myOCT is the correct name. Now the system is back up. To remove the container, we can use docker rm myOCT after the container is stopped. So first we have to stop the container. And docker remove OCT. Sorry, wrong name again. It should be myOCT. Now the container is removed. If we want to run the container again, we have to build it from the image again and run it. So we will use the long command we used just now to build it and run it. That is all for this video. All content covered in this video is also available in the OCT GitHub repository. In the README file. So please use that also as reference when you run into problems. Thank you and have fun deploying.